Comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live within the city. You will have 4 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Parker will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment?
Good evening. My name is Brian Kiesling. I live in Midtown. About a dozen of us came here tonight representing a local Palestinian-led coalition to implore you to introduce and pass our resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Our coalition is part of a larger statewide coalition, which is in turn part of a larger national movement, which is in turn part of a global movement that is demanding an end to the slaughter, and an end to the slaughter and the liberation of the Palestinian people. I'm speaking to you today because this is an emergency. Over 30,000 Palestinian civilians and counting have been murdered, 70% of whom are women and children. Gaza is facing a famine and life-saving aid is being cut off to the people. We are coming to you because our federal and state governments have failed us. They are not listening to the people. The majority of Americans want a ceasefire, and this is true across the board. Polling shows a majority of people across all races, religions, and even political parties support a ceasefire, but our government is not listening. Over 70 cities in the US has passed these resolutions to put pressure on our government to listen to the people and do the right thing, and we want Harrisburg to join them and be on the leading edge of this movement. Harrisburg would be the 7th state capital city to pass this resolution, and we would also join Erie and State College, which have passed them. Other PA third-class cities working on resolutions are Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton, and Philly and Pittsburgh are both working on resolutions as well. Harrisburg residents have family in Palestine. Their tax dollars are paying for the weapons that our country sends over to be used against their own families. That is the definition of cruelty. We see tonight how much of a struggle it is to get the Broad Street Market up and running again, how hard you're working on that. That's one building, and that was a fire. Imagine if instead of a fire, it was a bomb, and instead of a bomb, and instead of one building, it was this entire city. And that this city was also being bombed in 2008, 2012, and 2014. Harrisburg would be begging the world to send us help, and we have an opportunity to do that for Gaza. This is one of the defining humanitarian emergencies of our time. It is a racial justice crisis, it is a feminist crisis, it's an environmental crisis, and it is a local crisis. We strongly urge our city council to rise to the occasion and work with us to pass this urgent resolution for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And we would also like to invite the public to join us next Tuesday, March 12th at 4:30 p.m. at McCormick Riverfront Library, where we will be hosting a teach-in for Palestine to help give people more information about this. We really look forward to working with you on passing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment? Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, anyone in the middle section? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone to my left? Seeing and hearing no one, the time is 8:32 p.m. I will enter my right that would like to offer public comment.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nicole Wooten. My address is 1515 North 2nd Street in Midtown. And I am speaking in favor of a resolution calling for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The world has spent the last 5 months recoiling in horror as image after image of this suffering is live streamed directly to the news and to their social media feeds. Mothers wailing in agony, holding their children's lifeless bodies. Little girls that refuse to believe that they will never see their big brother again. Young men desperately trying to distract and entertain young children, only for the sound of a distant bomb to make them all scream in terror, even if the danger has passed this time. Next time, they may not be so lucky. Even if their lives are spared from bombs and bullets, public health experts predict far more will die from starvation or infectious disease. Many children have already starved to death, and pregnant mothers face severe malnourishment. Gazans grind bird seed to make flour for bread. They scrounge for scraps wherever they can find it, potatoes they find on the ground or a moldy orange. Menstruating women and girls, if they are healthy enough to menstruate, have resorted to fashioning pads and tampons from scraps of the tents they shelter under. All the while, Israeli officials make statements saying that, if anything, they will escalate this slaughter. President Isaac Herzog stated in October that there will be no uninvolved civilians, that there are no uninvolved civilians. When he says that, let us be clear, he is referring to the people I mentioned before. Ask yourself, what threat do these children pose? What sort of coward is so consumed with fear and hatred of an entire ethnic group that he justifies killing children? In the view of this genocidal regime, their greatest crime is being Palestinian. The urgency of this resolution is self-evident from the suffering of Gaza. This slaughter, this genocide, it could stop tomorrow. If President Biden wanted, he could halt all weapons shipments to Israel and their ammunition would be depleted within a few days. They might find new sources of ammunition, but you know what? At least they wouldn't be bought with my tax dollars, our tax dollars. More than 30,000 people are dead. More than 12,000 of them are children. To put that in perspective, the population of Harrisburg is only about 50,000 people. Everyone in this city can sense the devastation when even a single life is taken. Like when a young person is gunned down because someone he had a disagreement with decided a gun was a solution. Every one of those individual lives is irreplaceable. They had hopes, dreams, family, laughter. They walked down to the store to get a Coke and got a candy bar for their little cousin. They got good grades in school or played football. Their life is not so different from someone in Gaza. The children in Gaza go to school, fly kites, rest under olive trees that were planted by their great-grandfathers. And then a drone operator pulls a trigger, levels his home just because he was following orders. And then that drone operator goes home to his children and lies to himself for one more day that he's only defending his country. To close out my comments, if our elected officials refuse to listen to our calls for a permanent and immediate ceasefire, it begs the question, how many more lives will they give up in exchange for keeping our so-called greatest ally happy? If this man-made famine continues, numbers like 10,000 more, 50,000 more will not be far-fetched. So council members, this is where you come in. Harrisburg could be a pioneer in averting this disaster. And if you vote yes for this resolution, the voices of 50,000 Harrisburg residents will be added to the list of cities who have called for a permanent and immediate ceasefire, including St. Paul, Chicago, San Francisco, Atlanta, Detroit, many others. I urge you, make sure this beautiful city of Harrisburg is on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment?
Good evening. I'm Catherine Pickering. I live at 2855 Croydon Road here in the city. And I'm a member of the Harrisburg Friends Meeting, which is 1100 North 6th Street, Religious Society of Friends. We're very active here in the city. And we have adopted a statement, what we call a minute, on the Gaza-Israeli conflict. And so I won't read the whole thing, but I would like to just read a portion of that. Harrisburg monthly meeting, as part of the Religious Society of Friends, follows the Quaker testimony on peace, justice, and nonviolence, based on the belief that the divine is in each person, resides in each one of us. Thus, we are deeply troubled by the suffering and injustice caused by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And we are concerned that our government pursues the violence by continuing to send billions of dollars of military aid to the region. We affirm the right of self-determination for both Israel and Palestine. We call upon our nation to, and we list many items here, but we support the call here. And there might be other churches and organizations in the city that now that we've come before council would also come and have the same kind of a resolution and statement from their congregations and their organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment?
This is my first city council attendance, so I'm not sure procedurally.
And before you begin with your comments, if you could please speak into the microphone. I'm receiving several messages saying it's difficult for viewers to hear. So I don't know if you need to pick it up and put it closer to your mouth or if another microphone would be appropriate, but there are definitely audio issues.
Okay, my name is Fareed. I live in Rutherford. I came here to talk about the ceasefire resolution. I was born in Ukraine and I moved to Harrisburg when I was about 4 years old in 1999, and one of the first close friends that I made in this city was a Palestinian American, and to this day I'm still very close to him and his family. So I find it hypocritical that when my country was invaded, there was a huge amount of aid, media coverage, and support given to the Ukrainian resistance. Currently, as Israel continues to murder unprecedented amounts of civilians, it feels as though we as US citizens are being condemned for calling for a ceasefire, and we aren't receiving support from the majority of our elected officials. I've worked in healthcare for several years and cannot fathom the idea that calling for the preservation of human life can be anti-American or anti-Semitic, and I would like to see the city that has been my home for the last 25 years sign a lasting ceasefire resolution. Furthermore, apart from my concerns about my tax money supporting a genocide, a ceasefire is also important to me because I find the treatment and targeting of healthcare workers and infrastructure by Israel to be reprehensible, distressing, and inexcusable in and of itself as someone who has chosen a career in healthcare. If my elected officials could find the courage to get behind the ceasefire to protect innocent civilians from genocide and starvation and to protect all healthcare workers attempting to provide aid in an active war zone regardless of what country they come from, it would send a strong message to our greater political establishment and allow us to join the over 70 other cities that have signed ceasefire resolutions in the United States. And it would show that Harrisburg upholds the principles of a reflective democracy.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the middle section that would like to offer public comment?
Excuse me, sir, could you give your last name, Fareed? B-E-L-L-O? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicole Banks. I don't live in the city, but I have grandchildren that do.
Hello, my name is Fareed Zainuddin. I'm a resident of Rutherford. I'm a physician and I'd like to talk about the healthcare situation in Gaza right now. So Gaza had approximately 36 hospitals, and of that, only 6 are functioning. The UN says that they are barely functioning. When there was the attack on Al Ahli Hospital in October of 2023, we thought that Israel would be held accountable for this, and that's not what we've seen. We've seen that this has been a pattern of attacks on healthcare systems and hospitals in Gaza that have gone unpunished as part of international complacency. To our horror, one after another, 30 hospitals, El Shifa, Indonesian hospital, Al Quds, Turkish Palestine Hospital, Al Khidma Hospital, El Nasser Pediatric Hospital, Rantisi Children Hospital, International Eye Hospital, the Cancer Hospital and the Hospital for the Elderly, the European Hospital, El Amal Hospital, Kemal Adwan Hospital. These were all attacked and fully destroyed. The most recent casualty was Al Nasser Hospital, which was besieged for days with thousands of sick and injured patients inside, and all of the remaining staff were expelled. Gaza originally had a bed capacity of 2,500, now rendered basically ineffective with these hospitals not functioning. And this, in perspective, would have been to serve a currently 60,000 plus injured Palestinian civilians, men, women, and children. The systemic destruction of healthcare in Gaza is going to perpetuate and cause waves and ripples for many years to come. There are thousands of cancer patients and dialysis patients who now have nowhere to turn, and I think we know what will happen to them. They've all lost access to their care. Gaza has over 50,000 pregnant mothers. There are over 100 births daily where women are receiving C-sections without anesthetics. I'm just gonna let that sit in for a second. A C-section without anesthesia. There's amputations happening without anesthesia. Massive burns aren't getting the first aid and treatment that they need. There's no pain medications left to give the patients that they are caring for. And it seems like we're almost in a dystopian world where these things should never be happening and we couldn't imagine these things happening, but they are. And I go to work every day feeling very guilty that as a doctor I can take care of my patients and I have what I need and they ultimately have what they need. But it's very soul-crushing knowing that there's these events happening to my people and to healthcare workers where there's some complacency internationally. And I just think everybody needs what they deserve, and they aren't getting what they deserve, which is help. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment? Pam, there was somebody before you. Okay.
I was just trying to save us a little time. Good evening, Council. Pam Parson, 18th and Holly. There seems to be a theme here tonight, which is you need to do better. We're theme about children and about accountability. And accountability starts at home. I have spent the last couple of weeks watching your marathon council meetings. And besides the outright pandering that I see sometimes to the camera, to people who are watching, there's a number of other things that I noticed. And our children are watching us. When we talk about gun violence, our children are watching not only what we say, but what we do. And that gets into the larger county, city, and internationally when we talk about accountability. So we tell our kids they need to do their homework and they need to be prepared for school. Yet I can tell when I'm sitting here and when I'm watching who isn't prepared for counsel, who hasn't read the things. And I can tell by the questions that you ask. We tell our children they need to tell the truth. They need to be accountable. Yet, we have members of this council who have had legal troubles and have never mentioned it. We have folks sitting on this council who have had legal issues and who didn't bother to bring that up when they were running for office, and we had to find out about it by accident. I'm not commenting on the criminality. That's a whole nother story. I am commenting on the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability. We talk about how we want to include everyone, yet we talk about unhoused people, but they're never at the table. We talk about them, but they aren't here when we talk about them. We talk about being accessible, yet our interpreters are only here when we have legislative meetings. Are not the work meetings important too? And I'm glad to have 4 minutes, but I got this 4 minutes. You all allowed us to have 4 minutes to talk by banning children from the dais. You threw one of your fellow council members under the bus. You have council members, you have things you say you want the community involved, yet there are council members who have blocked people from the social media, not because they were nasty to them or said any bad things, but because they asked questions. And interestingly enough, because I'm one of these people who looks at the agenda every Monday night, the resolution that everyone is here talking about was on the agenda last night. But when I looked today at noon, because I wanted to see if there was an electronic link, it wasn't there. So it's been taken off the agenda, but the agenda wasn't marked as a revised agenda. So, you know, you all have to do better. And being transparent and being what you say that you are about is important, not only when you're sitting here in front of the cameras, but when you're doing everything out there where people in the community can also see you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to offer public comment to my left?
Good evening. I am Brian Kiesling. I live in Midtown. Little something about me. When I grew up, my family attended Temple Ohev Shalom just up Front Street, and I had the very unfortunate privilege of meeting a number of Holocaust survivors, speaking to them, learning from them, hearing their stories. Once a year, my Hebrew school class would cross the street and clean the Holocaust Memorial, and there it says that the Holocaust could happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone. And I never really understood what those words meant until today. This need for a ceasefire resolution, a permanent and immediate ceasefire resolution, is something that would be necessary even if it didn't connect to Harrisburg at all. As human beings, as people, we see what's happening in Gaza and we recognize a Holocaust unfolding as it happens. And I know from speaking with each of you that you know that and appreciate your understanding of the gravity of the situation from these conversations. Your feelings are clear and appreciated. What we need to understand, though, is that this does connect to Harrisburg and that Gaza is a canary in the coal mine that we all need to be aware of. Systemic oppression is not a buzzword. It is not an abstract concept. It is a global, interconnected web of forces and power, people in charge, systems that determine the laws that we live under, that determine how our society functions, and it impacts all of us. For example, you may have heard before about the deadly exchange, where American police go over to occupied Palestine, where Israeli police come over to the United States. They train each other on tactics. We all saw that video where George Floyd was murdered with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes. That is a tactic that our cops and Israel's cops teach each other to do. I wrote these notes earlier today and intended to bring up the Dauphin County Prison. I did not expect that we would hear such a personal story about that. But those many deaths that have gone unaccounted for in that prison are part of the same system that is inflicting a genocide in Gaza. And we have built a community here in Harrisburg where we recognize each other's pain, we recognize what each other is going through. There's a reason that when we were out at the March for Peace the other Friday, our organizers met their organizers, immediately talked, hit it off, start building those connections, because we recognize the interconnectedness of our causes. You will see us at the Love is Life rally this Saturday. We are going to be there because we recognize the interconnectedness of our causes. We are living in difficult times, and by every indication, things are only going to get harder for a lot of people. And the fact of the matter is, the people who hold power over us are elected officials. They are not doing what needs to be done to stop it. In fact, majority of the time, they are the ones perpetrating these crimes. So it's on us. It's on the people in this room. It's on the people on this council who, as I've gotten to know you a little bit,